Good evening, all, and welcome to Practically Tactical. This is our live show streaming to you on YouTube, but you can also catch all of our shows on iTunes in a podcast format. New episodes drop every Sunday at noon Central Standard Time and feature some of the most well-known temple indexing people in the world. So for all those who are watching and wondering what temple index is, put the question in the chat or the Google Q&A app, and we'll be happy to answer it for you. Also, be sure to click that like and share button on the videos. It really helps us spread the word around YouTube and get everybody viewing the show. So, let's start the show. Welcome to Practically Tactical, episode 45, brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network. The Practically Tactical show features a roundtable discussion about guns, gear, shooting, and temple indexing. For more information on the show, links to our guests, guns, and gear we discuss, please visit practacpodcast.com/045. I'll tell you what, we got an awesome show tonight, and we have on good buddy coming back on the show. We have Steve Fisher from Sentinel Concepts. How's it going, Steve?
Awesome, dude. How's it going?
Just hanging out, What are you up to?
Bro, just chilling, doing a little temple index, hanging out, relaxing.
Working on we've developed a new holster called the RoboCop, right?
Yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to actually be able to clip onto your hat and then just kind of rotate in kind of like a Predator fashion. It's really cool.
With sound effects and everything.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
But tonight's show is going to be very, very interesting for you guys out there listening. We're going to be talking some vehicle tactics, something that I'm definitely interested in. We kind of talked about a little bit before, I think, when Steve was on, so we're going to be diving into that, so it's going to be very interesting. Before we get to that, a couple show notes, a couple show announcements here. Check out a map beta that I'm working on at practicallytactical.com/map. So basically, like our show last night, we had Solo Defense, and we had Keith from MDFI. There's actually a map where you can find those guys. Steve Fisher of Sentinel Concepts is on there as well. So there's a map of North America on there, and there's different tabs throughout the United States and North America on there. And then basically you can see where all these firearms instructors are. So it's a good way to find firearms instructors. Also, along with that, we want to start posting up some after-action reports. So if you've taken training, but you haven't wrote a report on it, that's called writing an after-action report. We'd love to publish those so we can help get the word out there about some other great instructors that maybe we haven't heard of. So get a hold of me at nick@firearmsradio.tv with any after-action reports, and I'd be happy to post those on our site. So, beyond that, you ready to talk some cars?
Let's do it.
All right. So, vehicle tactics, Steve. When we say vehicle tactics, what is that?
Realistically, we're talking vehicle techniques, all right, instead of tactics. Kind of a different series there. What happened was myself, I joined forces with Will Petty, a great guy, law enforcement officer out of Texas, so I do a lot of work with. Will had a pretty good program going that involved vehicle tactics or vehicle techniques for, not only law enforcement, but the average citizen. And we started to roll his program, some things from my older vehicle program, and combined them and just have been knocking it out of the park ever since. I guess the biggest thing that people don't understand is that we spend most of our lives in containers, be it vehicles, a house, businesses, commercial structures, and then the peripheral areas that are the to and from those locations. When you really start thinking about it, that's where we live. We live in those 3 to 4 environments, and that's where we stay.
Okay. So actually when we say tactics, what we're really talking about is techniques, whether it be doing some sort of weapons manipulation inside the vehicle or either moving in or out of the vehicle. Obviously the two most common things other than driving a vehicle, correct?
Absolutely.
So we're not talking about driving down the road, turning our gun sideways, and doing a drive-by.
No,
I don't know. Is that covered in your vehicle course at all?
No, I'll save that for some other instructors.
Okay. I was curious if somebody offered that, like, hey, here's all your high points, go drive by these targets, Maybe there's a niche market out there for that. Probably Chicago,
Yeah, definitely there.
Maybe I should start up a training company doing that, because overhead is pretty low on buying high points. So
it is, and you could get High Point would probably sponsor you. I'm just saying they probably would. They need that. No, honestly, the vehicle techniques, it's a broad spectrum. It's, you could be dealing with shooting in to out of a vehicle, from the interior to the exterior, from the exterior to the interior, depending on your job uh, or the situation you've been presented with. So understanding ballistics, how they work, what is actually truthfully cover or concealment on a vehicle. We've shot hundreds of cars and thousands of rounds of various calibers on vehicles, and we've come up with some actual really solid hard data points on what works and what doesn't with all the various calibers. It's not like we're going to the range just shooting up vehicles saying, hey, there you go, hide behind the engine block. We're actually doing graph charts, full ballistics, catching rounds that are either entering or exiting the vehicle that aren't, and dealing with a lot of vehicles that are either from the late 80s, early 90s on up to some of the most modern year 2014 vehicles that people encounter.
Okay, so well, let's start it off here then. Is now I guess generally for your vehicle classes, do you do more? I'm assuming LEO is the majority of people in those classes.
Vast majority. We do have contract classes that are specific to agencies and departments, .gov, .mil stuff, .le. We do offer open enrollment classes that anybody can come into with the proper credentials, backgrounds. Then those classes have actually been quite popular as well. We just did one here earlier this year. I'm in Alliance, Ohio, actually, at the Alliance PD training facility, where we filmed the video trailer for the one vehicle class that everybody kind of raved about, that Matt from Firelance Media did. And that was an open enrollment class. It was probably 75% citizens to 25% LE.
Okay, so quite a bit. So someone out there, let's say, regular guy like me, that why would I take a vehicle class? I concealed carry. I think that's probably enough. And this is kind of something we hit on too, on specifically on the last show, was actually getting out in and out of vehicles, like especially at gas stations. You see it all the time at gas stations. That's actually one of your weakest points and where a lot of attacks happen, isn't it?
Pretty much anywhere, any place, the attacks will happen. I try not to segregate it into a gas station, a convenience store, whatever the case may be. There's a million what ifs and wheres. No matter where, it can happen. It could be the mom getting out of her car to do grocery shopping with her kids, and the estranged ex's stalker, whatever it may be, chooses to attack. Then it could be the gas station, like we've seen in certain videos that have come out lately. It could be road rage incident, which has come up again in a couple locations, including my own hometown. So these things aren't abnormal. There's really no set rhyme or reason where or why it could happen. That's why we kind of prepare for all options.
Okay, that's a way better way to say that. And you can call me stupid, it's fine, but that was a nice way of not saying it. So
no, you can figure out this whole Google thing and do all this stuff, and I can't. I can just teach you to shoot guns.
Well, so basically, as a regular citizen, why would they be interested in any sort of vehicle type of classes? What would they come in, and obviously I'm sure they're going to get their mind blown, but what would somebody walk away with from one of these classes?
Understanding not only what rounds do to vehicles as far as incoming fire, but as well as outbound as return fire. Not only that, but how to actually fight around your vehicle, either around it, through it, or under it.
Okay, and I'm going to assume right now we might as well just abolish out of our minds anything that has been in the movies.
Yeah, pretty much. Let's just throw that out right now.
Okay, so anything that we think we might know about vehicles from movies, just ditch right now.
Yeah, other than they're really cool cars and they do awesome stuff and they're really fast.
Okay, so let's let's start at the base here then of I guess when you start a class, are people usually in the vehicle? Are they getting into the vehicle, getting out of the vehicle? What's kind of like the base type of functions, like when you're talking about vehicle techniques? And I guess maybe especially for this show in regards to just standard type of citizens, what's like the good base to start with? Just being in the vehicle?
We generally start with a square range workup. A good shakedown of everybody's kit, holster, their ability to access the firearm, correctly without sweeping themselves or others, maybe a passenger in the vehicle. We've seen guys who showed up with some really crazy rigs, from carrying small of the back, which is about as silly as there can be, to, just some, I don't even know what it was, but being able to access the firearm immediately, quickly, safely, and able to employ the weapon that they choose, whatever gun it may be. From that point, we start working simple ballistics, showing how the vehicle actually performs when shot with various rounds, from full metal jacket to hollow points to rifles, shotguns. So we go through the whole gamut, and then we start working them from inside the vehicles.
Okay. Well, then I'll stop you there. Then let's talk about what you kind of did there first is ballistics.
Mm-hmm.
I would say then the most notion is the engine block. That's like the only place to go. Is that kind of how it works? What type of when you talk about ballistics of these bullets, I guess fill us in on that information of what you mean by ballistics.
Rounds do funny things when you shoot them into mediums such as vehicle glass, engine blocks, hoods, tires, A-frames, all those things. The main point is, the front end of the vehicle, the engine block, offers you a lot of protection. All right, it definitely does. Now, how long you want to stay in that one spot, that depends on you. It's not just about, I'm going to hide here until the bad man goes away, but it really truthfully comes down to about the ability to fight your way across all these points of cover and or concealment and working your way around and even through the vehicle to give you the best possible advantages.
Now, I think kind of something you hit on there is cover, obviously important, but you mentioned cover and concealment because it's two different things, correct? When you're talking cover, you're talking something that could probably stop a bullet, but concealment is being able to move without being seen, and those are two different things, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. There's points on a vehicle that aren't necessarily the best for ballistic, ability to stop incoming rounds. But you also have the advantage of being able to move around the vehicle, look through the windows while moving around the vehicle. Changing positions from, standing to kneeling, squatting to prone. So pretty much anything you can do on a square range, which you should be able to do, you should be able to do around a vehicle.
Okay. So let's talk about bullets through glass. What have you learned?
That bullets go through glass.
How do they? What changes? You talked about full metal jackets versus hollow points. What necessarily? I mean, do they just go straight through? Is there a common type of trajectory that you guys can place out when going through glass?
There is deflection. There is deflection. No two ways about it. The thing is really understanding what your particular round does in your particular vehicle. Depending on the rake of the windshield, the width of the windshield, the cant, the angles, the curvature of the windshield, all those things come into play, and there really isn't a hard, set, fast rule other than pick a spot, own it until the bad man goes away, just like any other shooting situation you would be in. So pick a spot, clear a path of avenue for the rounds to go through. This isn't super secret. It's all over the internet, but most people don't understand it, and your ability to do it is another thing as well.
Correct. So basically, if you had to shoot through glass, basically is to put the most amount of rounds through the same spot, needless to say, to where if it's not exactly on target, at least that area is weakened to where it has the minimum trajectory, changing of trajectory.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, what about, is this the time where the 40 and 45 guys can go, see, here's why I don't like the 9mm. Have you found any of that at all in the differences, or?
Oh, yeah, we get that all the time, and often a lot of times the 40, 45 guys get very, very hurt. They get very upset that their Wonder Blaster 6000 with their, awesome 230 grain plus P plus Super Ninja ammo is not doing what it should do.
So,
also ballistics.
So, I mean, in regards to the car stuff, is there any differences between 9, 40, and 45? I mean...
No, honestly, just like shooting people, there is no difference between that either. Ballistically, we know factually, scientifically, that any of these rounds work via one way. A lot of them apply to the same general area to stop that problem.
Okay.
Caliber debate is useless. It's generally for people who are of one mindset, one thought, and they're wrong.
And they're wrong. All right, so we're keeping up our 2 nights in a row of making the internet butt hurt. I love it.
Don't get me wrong, dude. I carry a 45. I'm a big 1911 guy. I love it. It's a great gun, great caliber. Been killing people for a long, long time. It definitely works. But you know what? A lot of bullets, no matter what the caliber is, works best.
Yep.
Flat out.
So, what other type of ballistics that you talking about, like hoods or cars? I guess has there been any big, I guess, this is the worst word ever, learnings of just any through trial and error and shooting and testing? Is there anything that has stood out that, hey, wow, this is something that really people need to know or be aware of, whether you're on the opposite end of that or?
Yeah, without giving it away realistically, because some of it can be sensitive to some guys in their jobs and places. Rifle rounds especially are interesting on vehicles. They do not perform as well as what some people would think they would, and there are areas on the vehicles that offer you better protection than others when involved with rifle rounds.
Huh. Okay, I know what you're saying there, so we won't go too much into that.
Yeah.
But obviously, does glass affect anything on rifles, even with?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Remember, you're dealing with two different types of windows as well: side windows, the passenger side windows, driver side windows, versus the front and rear windshields. Different types of glass. You've got that laminated safety glass, tempered glass. So there is variations in that, and even some of the newer windshields today have a multiple laminate. So all those things do have an effect on rounds from rifle. The one thing that is a pretty constant though is shotgun.
Really?
Double-aught buck is a wonderful thing.
Just performs, huh?
Absolutely, every time. No doubt about it.
All right, so when we're talking ballistics or any other type of trajectory type of stuff from of cars being shot, is there anything else that stands out that I'm missing there, or any other information that people should know?
What people really need to realize is the key points. It's not about the gun, as my partner Will says. It's really, or not about the vehicle, it's about the gun and getting that gun into play when it comes down to it, or literally about just hitting the accelerator and running them down. It's one of two options. If you have the ability to use 6,000 pounds at 60 miles an hour, you might as well. If not, you have to go to the gun and you have to do work, and you've got to do a lot of good work with it in a very short, compressed time frame.
Hey, nothing kills more deer than going 60 miles per hour.
It's
the only way I can get a deer.
I was going to say, you get Keith from MDFI on. He's really good with a spotlight and a .22 rifle. Oh, wait. Sorry, Keith.
Oh. One of these days you should dress up. Does he like to hunt?
Oh yeah, Keith's a good. You're
where you should dress up a deer as a clown and see what he does.
He'll cry, fall out of his tree stand. It'll be horrible, bro.
That happened to come up last night, so that was kind of funny. And we're sitting here talking, and what I keep thinking of is the when you're talking about getting your gun in play is the was it the Miami-Dade where there was one officer that just sat, I think, behind the engine block with a revolver and kind of waited, and that was obviously the wrong thing to do.
There's a lot of things that happened in that shooting, and obviously without rehashing history, we learn from every incident that occurs, and we dissect. We learn from those experiences, and that's how we continue the educational process. So there really is no right or wrong in some situations. It's just a way of doing things that maybe at the time the training dictated or they felt was best. I mean, there is a time and place where if you were outnumbered, outgunned, to do some things, depending on injuries, fire superiority, depending on what's going on there. But, there is no really way to describe that without having been there and lived it, to be honest.
That is true. So we'll move on from the outside of the car. So being inside the vehicle, I guess from a concealed carry standpoint, and here was one of the things I was really curious to get your thoughts on. A lot of people, usually when I concealed carry, or even if I'm open carrying from work, I have it on me. I know that there's other people that will build up a rig to put their handgun kind of on their near their entertainment thing, or different ways of not having it on them, but easier to grab, we might say. What's kind of your thoughts of being in the vehicle, having the gun on you or near you, or put it in some special car holster, or what are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, on your person is the best bet. I spend a lot of time driving, no questions about it. I'm a strong advocate of appendix carry. That's generally the way I carry because it's the most easily accessible to me with either or hand while driving, seated in a vehicle, even with a seatbelt in place. I generally set up my seatbelt a specific way so that it's basically the firearm is totally accessible to me while driving. And I think the biggest thing that people really don't get is that if they're going to set up a vehicle holster, they need to make sure it has some levels of retention. Anything that is not bolted down in that vehicle becomes a secondary missile during an accident.
Okay.
Or they forget about it when they get out of the car and they go into the store or wherever. Your gun on you is the best place. Period.
Yes. And it's kind of why I was kind of working on the show notes and stuff. One of the stories I came across was, and we talked about many times on the show with a bunch of different people, is your car is not a holster. That's one thing we've talked about. But I was reading this story a while ago and thought of a guy that forgot his gun was in his car, was at a stop sign, and just he's the guy that got picked, by two guys and got attacked. He didn't have his gun on him, and it was a story about bringing your gun with him, but it had a lot of kind of vehicle stuff of generally, at least if you're in a parked area, it's not just one guy coming at you, it's kind of multiples, and I don't know from your experience if that's true at all, from what you've seen or experienced, but kind of your thoughts on that.
Again, it really depends. Today's criminals, again, they hunt in packs. They're like predators. There's still a pack mentality, but nothing is a certain, again, that we talk about.
Yeah.
It could always be the individual. It could be 2, 3s. It could be, the current rash of flash mob incidences where, dudes are just running rampant, doing silly stuff like beating people half to death outside of a Kroger grocery store. That just happened recently. Any of those cases. So, yeah, it could be 2s, 3s. It could be singular. You just have to be prepared for the worst case scenario as best as possible.
Yeah. So then let's move into when you're talking about vehicle techniques. So obviously, I'm assuming the main thing that you guys work on and make sure it is clear is muzzle discipline in a vehicle, right? Whether it be someone inside the vehicle or others outside the vehicle and yourself, correct?
Inside the vehicle, exiting the vehicle, working around others around the vehicle, especially in law enforcement scenarios. Those of us that are friends that daily carry together, who drive places together, go to work together, could be anything. Where we are caught in a position where we have to exit the vehicle. Obviously, you don't want to be trapped in that container for a protracted period of time, but you also need to understand that there's a time and place and way to move around other beings without pointing a gun at them when people are already in a situation where they're trying to put holes in you at that point.
Okay, so let's talk about inside the vehicle and techniques when you're talking about a class, whether that be, I guess for me, is it generally more taught on the aspect of just from the LEA point of arriving to a place and then transitioning out of the vehicle, or do you guys talk about some stuff of being in the car then having to manipulate a weapon inside the vehicle?
It's more about the actual attack occurring in I won't really say ambush fashion, but basically a reactive situation where, on the LEO side of the house, we've documented several hundreds of cases where LEOs have been ambushed on traffic stops. Several of them are well known, and the videos are out there of them. No need to go through that. But even also the cases where officers have been able to exit the vehicle, been involved in a gunfight or shooting at that point in time. Even for the average citizen, it could be, like we said, whatever scenario you want to play it out as, but learning to egress from the vehicle or unass from the vehicle, getting your seatbelt clear, getting the gun out into play, and getting around that vehicle to a point of cover by yourself. I mean, face facts, there are people around you all the time, no matter where you are. And realistically, people would say, well, I'm not going to be too worried about muzzle sweeping anybody because my gun will just be down or it'll be here. It's going to happen. We've seen it with some of the most highly trained professionals in recent years, and it happens. And it is avoidable with proper training. And, yeah, people say, well, I'll just go to position Sewell. Well, position Sewell is one of the worst things you can do exiting a vehicle. For those that aren't familiar with Sewell, look it up, developed by Max Joseph and Ellen Brosnan from Tees. They developed this back in probably the late 80s, working in South Central America. It's basically South in Portuguese, or muzzle down. And the problem with that is you have these really awesome things called legs, and this one holds this big major thing called the femoral artery in it. Yeah, that's a really cool thing when you're trying to get out of a car or a vehicle and work around people. It's a SIRT pistol, by the way. And you start muzzle sweeping your legs, your thighs. You could be in that position where you're pulling your child out of the car and you've got that gun in your hand, which does happen. We've seen cases of it. And understanding where that gun goes in that time of need is important.
Okay, so I guess here would be one question then. So, let's say is the most important aspect then if you're in a vehicle coming up to whatever is basically getting out of that vehicle? Is that kind of usually the not that if you have no other options, you can't run the guy over or whatever or get away for some reason you're stuck or your vehicle's not working or you're stopped or bind it in. Is the most important thing at that point then if something goes down is to get out of the vehicle and then use your vehicle as concealment?
Obviously, that's a great option if it's the only option available to you. That's immediately. If not, running is even better and getting more vehicles between you and them. The situation is dependent. I mean, situational awareness is key, obviously, if you're driving into an area, parking lot of the grocery store, picking your kids up from school, taking the kids to school, just daily tasks of driving. And at that point, getting out of the vehicle or getting the gun in play immediately while you're kind of in that trapped area, which it basically becomes, you're basically, being pinned in by a door, other vehicles where you're parking. All those things come into play. Criminals are not stupid. They look for that opportunity, that very small opportunity and window of time, and that's usually when it happens. Mm-hmm. Is upon exiting the vehicle or just as you're about to exit the vehicle.
They'll get you.
Yeah.
So then basically, I guess I'm just trying to figure out here. There's no set way when it comes to vehicle techniques then of, okay, here's step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's so much situational stuff that you really have to process during that time frame of, hey, is it best to exit the vehicle or do I need to seek another different, door might not be the best way to go to, or so that there is a high level of processing information in an instant to where doing the right type of technique or tactic or whatever you want to call it of moving from that vehicle or doing something in that vehicle.
Yeah, absolutely correct. There is no real true hard fast set rule other than if you have to get out of the vehicle and it's now, get out of the vehicle now, but get your gun out and ready to do work. If you're not accessing the weapon while in the vehicle and shooting, then you should be accessing it and getting it out and ready to shoot the moment you're out of the vehicle when that situation presents itself.
Okay. So kind of we'll hit on the opposite thing here of getting into the vehicle. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming that is covered in the class as well. I'm thinking more LEOs type of stuff of getting in to go after somebody, or I guess on the aspect of getting in regards to vehicle techniques. What's kind of to learn there? Because I mean, for me, it seems put our gun away and just get in the car. Pretty simple.
Pretty much put your gun away, get in the car. Entering a vehicle is entering a vehicle. It's like walking through a door for the most part. You walk up to your vehicle, you check your surroundings. Situational awareness dictates, obviously, if it's nighttime, daytime. You're checking the interior of the vehicle on your approach. You get in your car, you seatbelt up, lock your doors, drive away. It's just the most simplest, basic thing that's often overlooked. It's touched on, but primarily the main focus on it is really shooting and working from inside and exiting the vehicle and working around it.
Okay. So then we'll definitely talk about then what about shooting out, being inside the vehicle and shooting out of it. When, like we talked about ballistics, does all the same type of ballistics, like with glass and everything, still apply with the bullet going out, or does that change at all?
As far as rounds exiting the vehicle?
Correct. If you're in it having to shoot out of the vehicle.
If you're having to shoot out of the vehicle, oh yeah, definitely. There's a huge ballistic change, and that's why we say, you need to pick a spot, own that spot, get the gun as close to the windshield as possible, and keep pressing the trigger till the bad man's gone. It's the most efficient way to do it. You're creating a path after the first 1 to 2 rounds have exited. They may be ineffective. They may have not even struck that person. And at that point, the subsequent follow-up rounds should be, because that solution is that hole in the window that you've now created for the rounds to travel through.
Okay. Now, when you say, sorry, I'm trying to figure out the best way to word this. So when you're talking about, um, I guess, why would you have the gun closest to the windshield? What does that matter?
Well, for me, it's a natural point of extension that I come out to engage with. It allows me a good sight picture.
Okay.
Remember, if you're dealing with somebody off the front end of your car or on an angle of the vehicle, you still have to be able to track them trajectory left to right, right to left. They could be, 5 yards off the front of the vehicle with a gun, which now puts them at 7 to 10 yards. They could be right on the hood of the vehicle. Doesn't matter. That gun goes out to full extension, allowing me to get a good sight picture and puts the rounds closest and gases and projectiles escaping the windshield in a better fashion, clearing a better pathway, and allowing you to have a better sight picture at that time.
Okay. I'm assuming you also don't cover shooting while driving.
No.
No. Okay. Is that an advanced level course?
There's no such thing as advanced levels.
Oh, okay.
No. And anybody tells you it's advanced level shooting program or gunfight, they're liars. It's sights, triggers, and manipulation, dude. No matter what you're doing, it's just in the space that you're working at.
Okay, so there's no like minigun through the sunroof class, or
Man, I would love to have one of those on my Hummer. I kid you not, but yeah. No.
no. Okay. But in regards to maybe some self-defense stuff here, because again, I think that's more obviously the people that watch and listen are. When it comes to vehicle stuff, can you maybe point out some hints and tips to those that carry in a vehicle, or some stuff that they might not necessarily think of that I'm sure I haven't even thought of that might help down the road in case anything ever happens, whether it be, again, having your gun on you. Obviously, you said it is best. Is there any type of little things we can do in our car to help as well, or or maybe some other type of gear we should carry along with us?
Absolutely. First and foremost, get comfortable with your gun in the vehicle. Come to a class, learn proper techniques. That's great. That's always key. That's the best thing possible, so we can show you, and a few others can show you proper ways to access the weapons in the vehicle and to present them. But even so much as putting your car in a garage or in a safe spot location where your neighbors aren't going to look at you weird in the driveway with your SIRT gun or a blue plastic gun, or your working your non-working guns, and actually doing repetitions of draw strokes while seated in the vehicle. Also, the biggest thing that most people forget is how to access their seatbelt or where their door handles are located. Believe it or not, under stress, we watch guys a lot of time that live in the same cars all the time fail to find the door handle. One of the things that myself and when I was working at Magpul with Chris Costa and some of the other guys, we were in rental cars all the time. Our first thing was to get in the car, set up our gear, make sure we had our guns on us, look at the door handles, adjust the mirrors, look at all our avenues of approach, see the blind spots on the vehicle, check where door handles were, how the seat belts were set up. All those things are important. So that even in your own car, in your own space, that people take for granted, like, oh yeah, I'll get my seatbelt, whatever it may be. And there are specific ways to get your seatbelt off that allows you to get out of the car without being trapped by your own seatbelt.
I guess, what are those?
I'm not going to tell you, come to the class. No.
Okay.
I'm just telling you. No, there's ways of just following the seatbelt down and getting them off of your person that are really, really, really critical points that people need to understand and learn how to do without getting entangled with their gun, their own body parts, preventing them from actually getting out of the vehicle. You'll see things as far as gear in the LEO community, especially battle belts. There's so much stuff on their duty rigs that as they roll out of vehicles, we've seen guys get actually hung up on the door frames or the door jambs by the locking mechanisms. That literally, we had one guy in class in Texas this past year who literally hit the disconnect on his bat belt, and just kind of whipped himself out of the vehicle because that's what was holding up. Unfortunately, the only thing that I could say to him was, hey, bro, really cool trick, but you normally are wearing belt keepers with that. He's like, oh. Yeah. So that wasn't going to quite work out, but he got an A for effort on that. But actually being able to clear the vehicle and getting out of the vehicle with a loaded gun in your hand and getting it into the fight is the most key components that we can give guys.
Well, here's some, because I'm just thinking about if I have to draw my gun, then can a lot of people actually use their my left hand is pretty much useless. Can they actually use their non-dominant hand to do the same type of things that you do with your right hand? I'm sure that you probably see that of people being probably a little goofy with their non-dominant hand of having to do the things that you normally do with your dominant hand, but you can't because you're holding a gun?
Yeah, a lot of times you'll see guys trying to access the seat belts, reaching across their body, trying to access them, kind of messes with them at times. I don't know about you. Normally, I just open my car door with my non-dominant hand, which is my left hand at this point. Yeah, the other thing that comes into play is grabbing kids.
Yes.
So there is a lot of things that go on that people need to understand where they're really at a disadvantage with vehicles. Think about how many times you pull kids, the average mom or dad, pull kids out of car seats. You're in an extreme disadvantage. Your situational awareness is gone. You're buried in that vehicle, in that container, and bad things happen. That approach of the attack can happen from the rear, cross vehicle. A lot of bad things happen at that point. So that's something else that we talk to people about as far as the situational awareness aspects. But understanding that each hand has a job is really a key component. From drawing the pistol, doing work with the gun, to undoing the seatbelt, and then getting to the door and getting the car door open and pulling yourself out of the vehicle while accessing a firearm and potentially using that firearm simultaneously. All those things come into play, and being an absolutely bilateral person, being able to use either or hand efficiently is pretty key.
Yeah. Is that the meth kicking in?
That was the meth, bro. I got the twitch. It's actually the mosquitoes in this place, dude, are like giant. I would have figured the frost killed them, but no, they're still the size of most large aircraft.
Well, I'm going to stop here real quick here and go to a little Q&A. We got a few questions here for you. So in this segment, guys, we're going to be fielding a few questions from our live YouTube audience. If you want to get your questions answered during one of our live shows, visit practacpodcast.com. We have an upcoming shows tab. Click on that. You can see dates and times. So here's a question for you from Dr. Gino Gano. Dr. No, maybe the G is silent. I'm sure the doctor will let me know how to pronounce it correctly. But Yeti, thoughts on issues on vehicle operation geared towards mitigating an encounter, i.e. scanning parking lots, parking in manners that offer escape routes, driving skills to be able to deal with road rage, aggressive drivings to avoid a lethal encounter?
That's a mouthful and a half.
Yep.
Obviously, the scanning and the pre-attack indicator stuff is key. Nighttime, daytime, visual acuity is up. We've got to keep our head up, see what's going on. Get out of the parking text position of doing whatever it is you're doing. Using flashlights at night, getting out of the vehicle, scanning your environment before even exiting the vehicle, making sure that immediate areas around you is clear. Parking in well-lit areas. Vehicles, I have a tendency to avoid parking around blind or at blind corners of buildings. That's a key hiding point for a lot of people. I will park or try to park at the closest, most accessible linear fashion to the doorway, kind of center line, if that makes sense, like a center set door, versus being on the corners of a building, because then at that point I have to come up, turn, and make that rotation that puts my back to a vulnerable area. So all those things kind of do come into play. As far as vehicle operation stuff, driving-wise, there's a lot of good schools out there that teach emergency vehicle operations or EVOC courses. Bondurant, I think it's KBR. A couple other ones have some really good ones. That is one of those things to go out and seek out, especially defensive or offensive driving programs. I think they're critical. I took I've been to about 3 of them, and they're absolutely a really good program to get involved with.
Okay.
What else that was a long question. What else did you ask?
I think you covered it all there. We do have a question, I think. It has a question mark in it, from user 64ish. It says post 46 bathroom. Does that ring a bell to you at all?
He's talking about the gun club. I have no idea what that is, but he's talking about the gun club. Tell him to hit me up on my email.
He also says the book. You must write the book. Bugging you aside. Thanks for sharing.
I've got a guy who's been wanting me to write a book for a long time about all kinds of stuff, and I would love to, except I can't type. So
that's out. So maybe you can write a book on Temple Index.
Oh, bro, we need to talk about that because it's bringing down like 4 flat tires.
Let's talk about the Temple Index thing real quick here, because for one, you had a really cool kind of history fact thing. So real quick, because I didn't know what the stuff was till a couple weeks ago in the OpComp thing, but Temple Index is basically whatever it might be is actually carrying your gun. Basically, there's your temple right there, right? Basically, you're carrying the gun at this, doing whatever you need to do. but we'll talk about here in a second, but it's actually in the pictures of the Reagan assassination attempt. There was actually a guy carrying it like that.
Yeah.
So it's not something that's a new fad or guys just being goofy. It is something that's actually been around for a while.
It's something that's been around for quite a long time and period. That's almost like as stupid as people arguing C-clamping the rifle. It's generally a lot of people who are not well versed outside of square range mentality. They live on a square range, specific set of rules. Gun stays down at a 45 degree at no ready, the no ready position, where the gun's directly straight down here, and they're like this. They're afraid to move because they'll get yelled at. You can't have the gun up because, heaven forbid, a round will leave the range and go straight up in the sky and knock a satellite out of orbit.
Shoot a plane down.
Yeah, there's so much stupidity behind it, and a lot of it is just people not knowing. It's just not getting the knowledge out about it. It's been around for a long time. For years, Jaeger took a lot of flack about gun up or the muzzle up position. Jeff Gonzalez just wrote an awesome op-ed about it on his blog at Trident Concepts about muzzle up. Jeff is a great guy, good buddy of mine, former Naval Special Warfare dude, and SEALs, they run a lot of gun up. High port with a carbine. It's been around forever. During the Reagan assassination, as I brought up during the photos, you can actually see one of the Secret Service agents who's pinned to the wall. He actually has probably a Smith & Wesson model, God only knows what it was, 19, I believe, in the picture, with the gun right here pressed to his head while the crowd is formed and everybody is on top of the shooters and the wounded individuals, and there's other officers and people working around. Guns still had to be out and easily accessible to be able to represent and fire if there was other threats, but without having the gun muzzle sweeping everybody around them, there's that meth thing again, and dealing with unknowns at that point in time, and knowns. So you're dealing with a whole set of complex problems that don't necessarily, maybe need a gun pointed at them, not pointing guns at your own people, not having your gun pointed down and trapped in a crowded environment where you're working, or, heaven forbid, let's think about it, your children who are under your feet, depending on their age, or in a stroller, or just clinging onto your leg like they'll do at toddler age where they're upright and walking and moving with you freely. You can't necessarily just throw that gun down, and then you can't nearly have the gun pointed out here in a high-compressed, traditional ready position pointed at everybody and their mother in the world. So what do? You point the gun up. It's that simple. It's situational awareness of the muzzle, pointing the gun in a safe direction at the point in time it needs to be pointed at. So it's either down or it's up. It's simple, people. It's science. It goes one of two places. If you don't like it, don't do it. The interesting thing is there's been some argument, quote-unquote, about it on, believe it or not, the Internet.
No way. I don't believe that.
Dude, I kid you not. People on the Internet have argued it. Rob Pincus was one of them, as a matter of fact. God, and I love Rob. But not really. He, Rob has some good stuff and interesting thoughts. He hates the muzzle up thing. He expressed that in a couple of pictures that were posted online of myself or Will Petty doing, the quote-unquote temple index or gun up position. But yet in the same note, there's also videos of people and pictures of students doing sit-ups on the range with their guns pointed straight up in the air. I don't get that. That's just one of those things. There's nothing unsafe about the gun up with the finger straightened index and or a mechanical safety if the gun has one engaged. Pointing right here, the muzzle is clear of the head, the magazine well is indexed just back behind the eye socket and the lips, allowing you good peripheral vision. And if I need to do any assessment at this point, I turn to the gun side first, because that is the area of the least visual plane that I have at that particular point in time. I'll scan to that area, then I'd come back to my other area, and I will hold the gun there ready to do work if need to until the area around me is cleared. Once that gun is up, you own that space until you have a clearing to bring that gun back down. Same thing with a gun in a low ready position. You own that space until you have a clear avenue for the gun to come back up. There is no difference other than dealing with second or third story dwellers inside a structure, but even then, gun down, you may be on the second or third story pointing down to the first or second stories. So it's a 9 versus 45 debate all over again that's just completely benign. It makes no matter. Choose what you choose, but choose it wisely. Mm-hmm. There's a place for both. It's not a draw and go into a ready position like this. It's not what it's for. It is a post-engagement process.
Okay. And well, and what you're kind of talking about, like the plane thing is of that's another way to look at it too of of a place that's where it's used, correct?
Well, without getting into it too much, I mean, there's places that, obviously you're not going to want a gun pointed down in a plane necessarily, or, for those guys that do work in planes or trains, automobiles, buses, wherever. I mean, you think about, police officers and linear stacks. You see a lot of high gun. Why? You've got to create space for teams to do work at that point. You see guys with a lot of guns low. Again, situation dictates muzzle position. That's all it is. If there's people in front of you and you need to do immediate work, obviously if they're still in the way, you're not going to be able to do work. Same thing with the gun up. But it means the gun isn't pointed in their back or the back of their heads or across the back of their legs or calves either. The gun is straight up.
Yeah. Now, in regards to, because I've heard some of this that I guess it's been mentioned in some classes as a way of transitioning, I think, in and out of vehicles using the temple index. Is that anything that you've run across or heard of, or
absolutely.
Could be applicable?
Oh, absolutely. It's one of the techniques that myself and Will teach. It really works well for exiting a vehicle. If I do come up, draw, and I start firing through the windshield of the vehicle or the side windows, and I need to get out of that car, there's people around me, and I'm in a confined environment, I want that gun up as I exit the vehicle. I'm not muzzle sweeping myself. I'm not coming across my arm as I'm opening a door with the gun, because people have a tendency to move their head and gun faster than other limbs move a lot of times. And what they need to understand is that this allows you to do spatial movement without covering anything else. That's critical. Brachial arteries are one of them. Putting rounds to your own person is not a good thing. So keeping the gun up while exiting a vehicle is pretty easy and allows you to move around others, especially law enforcement officers or those with family that may be huddled in around that vehicle. Yeah. Even moving into positions of cover from one point or another, if you're running in with your gun out, it's woohoo, look at me, it's all over the place. And now what's it doing? You've got this laser beam tracking against everybody and everyone in that area. With the gun up, I can control it while moving without covering those people in that short duration burst of movement and getting into a position around others that may be underfoot or crouched down behind a position of cover or concealment.
And again, too, we're not talking about drawing the gun and just putting it like this.
No, that's stupid. Nobody does that.
We're talking about, again, this movement and transition thing to where, like, the immediate thing I thought of like getting out of vehicle is you're at somewhere in a parking lot or a school, for example, and a shooting happens.
Sure.
That's a thing to where maybe, obviously, we're not just drawing our gun. You don't want to be the guy drawing a gun in the middle of a shooting, but if it's something to where if you're getting, someone starts shooting at your car or something and you need to return fire and then get out to, again, find some cover or concealment, that may be, if that's the solution of there's a ton of people around, that may be a solution to it. Again, you're going to have to think a little bit.
Right. Absolutely. There's a lot of techniques for getting the gun out of the holster, clearing up over and around the steering wheel using a clock method. That works well. It allows you to bring the gun up all the way over and around. But then again, by the time you're exiting the vehicle, the gun is pointed out the window of the vehicle or out the door. And then sometimes it goes in a downward fashion, but usually at that same point simultaneously, and you can try this, you'll see it that you end up either muzzle sweeping your arm or your own legs, which, hey, I will definitely give up my own body parts for family, sure, no doubt about it. But if I have a safer alternative, why wouldn't I do it?
Yeah.
No, like I said, this is nothing that's new. It's been around for years. A lot of people have used it in classes. Most notably, you'll see some videos around. Matt Graham from Graham Combat does it. A few other people in this industry also employ it. Like I said, Jaeger's been using it for years in his classes. This is nothing new. I think just more or less along the lines of social media has gotten it, and it's blown up because of it. And every range armchair commando and their mother is picking up on it going, oh, that's stupid. You'll blow your brains out. Well, no, not really. But, yeah, whatever. I'm kind of over it because those are usually the people that don't come to class anyways. They don't want to learn anything, and they get all their information off YouTube. So, yeah, have at it.
Well, they can get all the information from my show, but everything else I don't care about. So
them and gun bunnies on the internet. They're awesome.
Oh, I guess I don't cover that demographic on the show, unfortunately.
Because I wouldn't be here.
Let's see here. Let's see if we covered everything in cars here. and here's kind of something, because you kind of hit at home there, is like when you were talking about getting kids out of cars, especially car seats, because again that you got to be a rocket scientist sometimes to get those damn buckles undone and the contraptions and the loops, you know, and my wife's a NICU nurse, so obviously we always have the newest and greatest, you know, car seats that I cannot figure out for the life of me.
Tell her to give you a lesson on those.
She tries and gives up. Trust me. She probably temple indexes when she gets done with me. But that's I was just thinking about that is literally like the weakest point. Yeah. And are there kind of any ways to maybe fight that? Because again, now like all the stories pop in mind of, you see them all the time about people getting held up in those instances, and people stealing their car, driving off with their kids. Yeah. Or people having to, you know, go into a fight or flight mode because they don't want to give up a car with their kids, you know. You have any type of advice for that? Again, there's situational awareness, and, you know, and everything there's no set way to do anything, but on ways to maybe decrease your chances of something happening, or ways to increase your situational awareness in those type of aspects.
The way realistically to deal with it is, you know, everybody, you know, again, back to the internet, you know, people always say, well, if they've gotten that close to you, you've already failed, you're this, you're that. Well, shut up. You know, things happen. Life happens, period. But the situational awareness, you know, the pre-indicator of driving into your parking space, checking the surroundings around you as you're pulling into your parking space, that's a critical component. Waiting. Taking a few minutes to survey the area, see who's moving around freely. You know, if it's people moving about doing their day-to-day thing, they look totally harmless. There's really nothing out of the normal. You know, the spider sense isn't up. Yeah, then, you know what, take a quick look around you again, exit the vehicle, head up, take another look around you, you know, quick survey of the area, open up that car door to the rear seats, you know, to get the kids done, and, you know, take a quick look around, you know, formulate that plan, go to the buckles, get that undone, scoop the kids, you know, turn back around, exit the vehicle, and just go about your business. But the key thing is taking those brief pauses to constantly reevaluate it, because every time you turn your head away, the world changes. So just taking those brief moments in life to reevaluate during that situation or that time frame. I've even got some friends that have chosen to release the seat belts from the interior of the vehicle while the vehicle is locked. They will literally reach around the vehicle, you know, in between the passenger driver's seat, reach around, hit all the release buttons on the seats, you know, get the seat belts undone, then get out of the vehicle, exit the vehicle, and scoop the kids out. So there's different avenues of approach that you need to see, obviously, depending on the vehicle, the size, width, depth, you know, where the kids are positioned, things of that nature. So if you can do it from inside the security of a locked vehicle, great. If not, then you have to do it from the exterior. But on the exteriors, make sure you keep that head up and you take all those brief pauses and moments in time to look around and evaluate what is happening at that time. And if somebody does decide to make that attempt while you're doing that, you have only one choice, and that is to go full nuclear option on them and do whatever it takes to go home and make sure that you and your kids are safe and they are in a bag. Yep. Period. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it when it comes to you and your kids.
It's 0 or 100, right?
Oh, dude, it's 0 to infinity. Breaking the sound barrier with, like, Chuck Yeager holding on, dude. There's no alternative other than to go full force option, bro. Nothing.
And can we say that maybe everybody needs to carry one of these?
They don't?
They should.
They better.
You'd be surprised how many people don't.
If you carry a gun, you carry a light. It's just that simple. If you don't carry a light attached to the gun, then you better carry a handheld with you. Even if you carry one attached to the gun, you carry a handheld. It's a great secondary tool. It's a great search tool. It's a great implement to have. Everybody should have one as part of their EDC kits. And, you know, part of that everyday carry. You know, as simple as from a tourniquet to a flashlight to a good blade to a gun. That goes with me pretty much just about everywhere. I've even got a tourniquet strapped to my oh shit bars in my truck. You know, more or less for me, it's the way I drive, and people will vouch for that. There's no secret about it, dude. It's not. But, you know, having the tools that can help become force multipliers are the key. Anything that helps you read the environment that you're in, low light, that's all critical stuff to have.
And here's kind of something, too, which we didn't hit on, and I guess maybe it's me being paranoid, but I always check the back seat of my vehicle getting into a vehicle, especially at night.
Yep.
I don't know, for whatever reason, maybe I've watched too many movies. That could be it. I am.
Because you'll never notice them as you're walking past the car, getting in the car, buckling up until they jump on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely true. No, like we talked about earlier, the situational awareness, walking up to your vehicle, even in the dark, using a white light or your key fob to turn on your interior lights. Any of those things you should be using as you're approaching the vehicle, to look between the vehicles in the dark, and to look in the interior. If you don't have a key fob, that'll automatically turn on your lights when you hit the unlock button. Those things are critical, which are often overlooked by people, is hitting that key, the controls on the vehicle, as you approach the vehicle to actually light the interior of the vehicle up.
Here's something that we kind of hit on, but going through this, obviously I'd like to hit on it, is what about an altercation where you and somebody else are in the vehicle, whether it be, someone sat in your back seat and got you, or you just get in the car and somebody jumps in on the side of you and, drive, like happens in the movies, which probably doesn't happen at all in real life. Any sort of techniques or anything along the lines of that aspect of actually having the shooting or the altercation of both parties inside the vehicle?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Craig Douglas, a.k.a. Southmark, best vehicle combatives class and hand-to-hand classes there absolutely are. If you carry a gun, you should take one of Craig's classes, absolutely, if not all of them. He is an absolute wizard ninja master at those operations. And I'll tell guys my take on it and things of that nature, but it really comes down to it. It's a mean, dirty, ugly dog street fight inside of a confined space that you don't want to be in, because most likely you will not be able to access your weapon. And if you are, it's going to be a really down, dirty, ugly fight. And Craig's program puts it in the best perspectives I've ever seen. I would absolutely deal with anything that he does on that topic.
Again, this could just be me making this up. But the story I talked about earlier of the guy that didn't have his gun on him in the car, his attackers had knives.
Yeah.
And it seems like, of stuff that I've read in vehicle attacks, seems like they have knives. That could be just me making that up too. But that could be a common thing when you're talking about the down and dirty thing. It's going to get ugly and it's going to get bloody, probably all parties involved, right?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Anytime you're fighting in a confined space, it's ugly, it's dirty, it's mean, and people are going to get hurt, including yourselves, and that's something you need to get over. And people need to understand that as part of their overall mindset, that once they get past that fear of being hurt, injured, or even killed, the better off they will be and be able to perform when that time comes. And you only get that through specific training, inertia.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Now, in some of that aspect of if you and the other party and something's going bad in the vehicle, if you can exit the vehicle, that's going to be your best option at that point in time, right? Sure. Obviously, other situational stuff that could or not could be going on, but if you can exit the vehicle, that's going to be probably one of the best ways to get at solving it, right?
Absolutely. If you can get out of the vehicle, escape from that situation, again, dependent on children. If you've got kids in the vehicle with you, your non-ambulatory great-grandmother or whoever's in the vehicle at that point in time, a lot of things come into play. But again, it's situational dependent. If I can escape it and there's there's nobody else in the vehicle that I have to be concerned about, I'm out of there. If I can't because of that situation, then it's ugly, and it's going to get real ugly real fast.
Yeah. Now, we've obviously talked about handguns and all the stuff we talked about other than ballistics we hit on with rifles. What about, does the game change at all with manipulating, rifles, shotguns, long guns inside of a vehicle?
Absolutely. Spatial consideration for the guns, unless you're running SBRs, current trend in a lot of areas is AR pistols.
Yeah,
that's a big thing. I've explored it. I have a couple of them. I've used them in and out of vehicles and classes. I've played with them on the range. They're a great concept. They suffer in some areas more than others. The problem is securing them in a vehicle is a hard thing. Guys say, I'll just grab out my AR pistol and go to work. It's awesome superhero when it's stuck in your tennis racket bag in the back of the car, or your awesome $300 backpack covert case with molly straps all over it that you have that's really low profile is not going to do you much good. This thing that is on you, that is loaded, that is immediately accessible is your key. Trying to pull out that 10.5-inch barreled, 7-inch barreled, whatever, and get it manipulated. Some guys will carry them empty chambers, and try to run that charging handle and do work at the same time. You're probably wrong. To be with you. And I'll tell you what, I've done some testing, and they turn into really big projectiles real fast inside vehicles if they're not secured specifically down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they do have a place, PSD teams, executive protection stuff. There's a lot of arenas where they do shine. Military operations, some law enforcement engagements, you know, they do come out, they do get used in vehicles. It's a trapped, confined tool at that point that you better be using all the rounds that they come with until you can get out of that vehicle.
And no matter what, whatever you shoot inside of a car is just going to be effing loud, isn't it?
What?
Exactly.
Yeah, dude, it's loud. Don't make no bones about it. There's this wonderful thing a lot of times called auditory exclusion that is amazing. It happens. I'll tell you that right now. And yeah, it's going to be loud. You may have problems later on, but it's a lot better than the alternative.
Yep, absolutely.
Hold on a minute. Let me get my ear pro on. Okay, I'm ready now. Yeah, you know, this isn't a match, dude. This is real world. It happens. And the human body is designed to defeat certain things to allow survivability. Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a break real quick here, and we got a few more comments here to go through for you here. User 64ish again. Maybe you guys are just best friends here because I'm not getting into this, but hopefully you'll get it here. You and Bruce Lee would have some interesting conversations. You have effectively become water. Stay liquid, my friend.
He's a good dude. I know who he is. So.
All right. And then, of course, whom we talked about before the show, all in good favor and during the show, would, of course, be our good friends over at MDFI. Tell Steve my grandma shoots faster than him.
Tell Keith, that, yeah. There's a thing about being accurate, too, bro. Just saying.
I still love the question about last night with clowns. That was a good time.
Yes.
But we'll wrap up the vehicle segment here. But obviously, with the vehicle stuff, there's not a list of 5 things. There's not just some steps to follow through that's going to work you through. No. Again, like a lot of stuff we discuss on the show, it's mindset and being able to process that information like that, and being able to make good judgments and good calls while in the midst handling a firearm. Obviously, training is something that it doesn't matter if LEO or a standard type of citizen. They need to, if they're interested in this, there's just no way to go about it other than getting training specific to what we've discussed about vehicle
absolutely
and weapons manipulations inside of a vehicle.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not a game to be played. I mean, it's not something that you can just walk off the square range shooting bullseyes in and think you can walk right into a vehicle class. I mean, you've got to have spot-on gun handling, manipulation. Your mindset has to be right because things can go bad in a heartbeat. And if you're not cognizantly aware of what's going on around you at all times while you're working in that space and around others in that space, bad things happen. And people need to understand that they need to go to a good program that actually gets into the meat and potatoes of those kinds of things.
Now, here's something about too, because I think we've had a recent rash in finding out that firearms instructors may or may not be who they said they were, and or offering classes that they probably shouldn't be. When you talk about this type of vehicle type of stuff, again, this is not some entry level. You're not going to let a basic handgun guy walk into a vehicle course. When you look at if someone's in a different area, when you look at how well is my instructor teaching a vehicle course, what is something that you might recommend to them? Obviously, the best way to go is just obviously do a class with you. But if that's not an option, how should someone evaluate an instructor on teaching a course like this?
It's a very limited arena of instructors teaching it right now. Myself and William Petty, Mike Pannone, Kyle Lamb, Chris Koss is doing one as well, a few other guys, and reputable instructors with good resumes, not the local guy who's doing the gee whiz bang, I saw it on the interwebs, I can do this too kind of stuff. You need to look for somebody who's got, it's not even really truthfully so much the accreditation or credentials behind it as well as the understanding of it, a lot of it, and the mechanics behind it and how to actually physically run it in a fashion to where it is not unsafe. You can take somebody who has spent 35 years in the automotive industry, who knows everything about vehicles, and a lot about guns and put that together and have an awesome program. If they're a good shooter and a good instructor or teacher, big difference there, who can actually walk you through, especially how vehicles work, how they perform, how bullets impact them. So there's a lot to it. It's not just, going to a shooting program. And to be honest, that's a hard one to answer because, everybody lives and works and has done this around vehicles their entire career, from military operation guys to specialty law enforcement teams, which you would actually be surprised about what they don't actually get in their training dealing with this, especially in the law enforcement community. There's not a lot of programs that are written about this, and this is actually how this whole thing came about, was with my partner, Will Petty, who is a decorated law enforcement officer out of Texas, who saw a big need for this as an instructor at the academies, as well as being a full-time patrol guy, and who also did a lot of contract work overseas and so forth, to actually start putting this together and bringing it mainstream.
Well, and kind of to hit on another topic, I remember, I can't remember who it was now, but basically someone, isn't there kind of a lot of gaps from basically that entry level police guy to types of SWAT? How isn't there kind of a big gap there when it comes to training that obviously is getting better being filled, but like this is kind of one of those things you're talking about, to where this kind of fills the gaps. They might not necessarily get all that training that they really could use on the job.
Absolutely. A lot of information gets passed over depending on really the demographics of the agency and the size of it, being their instructor cadre, where they've been, where they've trained, so forth and so on, and the ability of the agencies to afford it. The problem is you run into a 12-man agency with the same guy who's been the range officer for 20 years on the job, who's gone to, one school, two schools, and, the quote-unquote basic programs. He's probably not going to have a really good understanding of what needs to be taught to him. You end up picking up something from some guys that have been, former SF dudes who've worked PSD details, who've done a lot of stuff, personal security people. They're going to have other tips, tricks, or hints involving this. When this program was geared up, it was wrapped around strictly the LE community. Then we started to bring it over into the average person's life, because we felt it was crucial and critical when talking about everybody that we know in our lives and what they do. And we said, yeah, it's time to start pulling a couple open enrollment classes on these and see how it works out, and it's been great ever since.
Okay. So if somebody is interested, do you know when the next open enrollment class is coming up for something like this?
2015.
Okay.
Definitely, we're running a little bit of time now. We're getting into, the wrapping up the 2014 schedule. We've got a few more contract classes left in the Texas area. And then 2015, we get into a full schedule. There'll be probably, I'm thinking around four open enrollment classes on them and through the quarters, including one package that we're doing strictly all UTMs, basically Sims rounds. So basically non-lethal training munition rounds that are basically, miniaturized paintballs that fire out of real weapons.
Yes.
And that brings a whole new dimension to levels of training when you actually put people under that stress and pressure of people actually firing back at you outside of actual real rounds coming at you. They hurt. They leave big red marks. Trust me, I know I've got a lot of them from them over the years. And we'll be doing a series of classes up here, actually at the Alliance, or over here at the Alliance Training Police Facility in Ohio, and we'll also be bringing in this year one of our buddies who's a really big guy into UTMs and munitions training, Aaron Cowan.
Yep.
From Sage Dynamics. Aaron's a great dude, great thinker, very methodical. Cat's got his head on in a really good place, like reading his stuff and working with him. And it's going to be a great pleasure to work with him this year in that class, along with me, him, and Will. So it's kind of a big threesome of us just burning people down with UTMs. It's going to be awesome.
I'm imagining there's going to be some awesome late-night pillow talks.
Oh, it's going to be like a bunch of high schoolers sitting at the foot of the bed looking at each other going, what are you thinking about? It's going to be stupid, bro. It's going to be awesome.
While you're painting each other's toenails.
That's what I'm talking about.
No, I definitely got to get Aaron on the show. I've talked to him, been on OpCom a few times with him. Awesome dude.
Yeah.
His blog is fantastic as well. He has no problem putting the butthurt down on the internet. That's what I love about him.
Absolutely. And he can back it up. He really can. He's a great dude. He thinks too much, uses too many big words. I'm like, bro, just say what you mean and like stop trying to sound like a really super smart dude. Like if you're talking about shooting people 8 times in the upper thoracic, dude, shoot that dude in his chest as many times as you can and then shoot him 8 more times in the face. It's the same effect, bro. And he's like, oh. So, you know, I'm more Neanderthal than Aaron, but he's a great dude and has a really good program. It's gonna be a pleasure working with him this year.
No, simunitions. It's a different game when there's somebody shooting back in the training, isn't it? Yeah. So, if you had to pick a list, let's say of doing the simunition class, and you got to pick, we'll say 3 to make it easy, 3 instructors that you, without a doubt, you would want to shoot with the sim round. Can you name them?
If I could pick 3 instructors that I would want to shoot with simunition.
You know what? We'll not even say instructor. We'll say 3 people. We'll just say 3 people.
Oh man.
Adam Peeney.
Adam Peeney would definitely be one of them because I just love to shoot Adam. The other would be Paul Gardner, just because Paul needs to be shot. And with UTM Sims rounds, I should say, because the poor bastard's already been shot. And I love Paul to death. Just had dinner and cigars with him in Texas this past week. And Rob Pincus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an all-around good group there.
It really is. You know, honestly, the whole thing, you know, me and Rob don't see eye to eye on a lot of stuff, like everybody in the industry, like we've talked about. Everybody's got their stick, and it's cool. But, you know, there's a lot of good guys putting a lot of good stuff out there. I've got really nothing against Rob in that format other than ask me and not Stephen Pinot about certain questions because I'm the one doing them, not Stephen. Other than that, dude, yeah, it's all good. It really is. You know, there's a lot of good people. But Adam Peeney would be top of my list to shoot. And then definitely Paul Gardner. I'm trying to think who else. Pat Rogers, but just because I do that with Pat a lot, and I've shot Pat inadvertently with a UTM round when he walked through the middle of a exercise taking pictures. So it happens.
Oh, I can just imagine you just shooting Peeney right in the butt. Just
it
would make your day, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. It'd be fun.
So before we wrap it up here, though, you kind of hit on it there. You got you're wrapping up the end of the season here with Sentinel Concepts, obviously first full year. So if you had to sum up the year here, how's it been so far?
You know, fabulous. The travel's been good. Met a lot of great people this year. Done a lot of really, really good work. You know, it's been good. I really don't have any complaints about it. I've you know, had some great partnerships coming from this, some great friendships, a lot of good people to meet and train. You know, just doing good work overall. Looking forward to 2015. The full schedule will probably be up in the next week or two. Hopefully, as soon as I get a little bit of downtime here to get it punched out to my web guy and get it up. And it's going to be an awesome season next year. We're really going to focus on the I guess the more specific type classes. There's going to be a lot more low light stuff being done next year because that's something we're seeing that a lot of people just don't get enough of is low light, no light training, both with long guns and handguns, as well as vehicles. There's going to be some more UTM simunition scenario stuff, as well as live fire home defense classes done here at the Alliance Police Training Facility with their live fire shoot house. It's 8,000 square feet of awesomeness. And to be honest, truthfully, I'm going to be pushing a lot of classes this way next year here. It's one of the only few facilities that are law enforcement owned and based that allow, you know, the average citizen to come in and shoot and train at their facilities. And it's an absolutely incredible place.
Well, I know you're going to be in Wisconsin, so that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yes.
So are you doing a lot of traveling in 2015 or mainly kind of in the Midwest?
You know, we've got some classes scheduled, you know, California, Texas, down south in areas, Kansas next year. There's, you know, a few other places we're trying to get. I'm trying to keep it in that, you know, Midwest area region because there's a good gap in there right now of really good traveling instructors that haven't been or back into that area in a long time. I'm using
like tornadoes.
Dude, absolutely. There's nothing wrong with tornadoes in training. It's a great effect, almost like lightning running around. And then Temple Index with rifles is even better. But no, you know what? The weather's great. You can't beat it. I mean, it'll be awesome here all the way through November in the Midwest. It's just some great training seasons. You know, it's just going to be a wonderful year next year. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, for all you guys out there, check out Sentinel Concepts, sentinelconcepts.com. I think facebook.com/Sentinel Concepts as well. Again, you'll have your 2015 schedule up soon. So if somebody is interested in this vehicle class, there's other classes to take before that point in time, so you can check those out. And obviously, you got a lot of big things coming up, so looking forward to coming out to Wisconsin doing some classes out here, because I definitely got to get in one.
Who said I'm going to let you in?
Huh?
Who said I'm going to let you in?
I'm going to beg and grovel like no other.
It'll be awesome to have you, bro. It really will. We'll definitely give you a good heads up when it's coming up, and we'll get you out there. It'll be great.
All right. Just so you can, I'll let you shoot me with the simunition if that'll get me in the class. Consider it done. But we're gonna wrap it up here, guys. And again, too, this is the subject we'd like talking about. We like sharing information, but again, it's one of those things to where, if like room clearing and vehicles, you have to take training on it to get well versed in it. It's not something that you're gonna learn from a YouTube video or this show is not going to give you everything you need to know on vehicle weapon manipulations.
Absolutely. And like I said, there's a lot of good instructors out there teaching it. Besides myself and Will Petty, Kyle Lamb through Viking Tactics has had a great program on the Street Fighter program for years. Mike Pannone is another one who does it. So, there's a lot of good guys out there teaching it as well. And you'll get a different perspective from all of them. Just don't stick to one. Get into a class, mine especially in Wells, and then, go to the others. And then develop and formulate your own plan, how it fits and works for your day-to-day lives.
Okay. And also, I'm going to include, I'm going to embed the video of you guys had not the hovercraft, but the, what's that? It's
not really a drone per se, I guess. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's a cool aerial object with a camera on it.
Yeah. It's like a drone, I guess, with a camera on it. But anyways, they had one of those in one of it was a low-light vehicle class, if I believe. Yes. An awesome video. I'll be sure to put that in the show notes on the website, so you guys check it out. Just a badass video. I don't know what else to say about it. Camera flying over, and you see people getting out of cars and shooting. Just an awesome video. Just awesome. But we're gonna wrap it up here. So thanks for coming on this week and chatting with me. Always a good dude to chat with, and I really appreciate you coming on, Steve.
Hey man, I appreciate it, brother, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yep. So for all you guys out there, we appreciate you listening. Don't forget to Temple Index at any time you can. But as always, guys, check out the Reloading podcast with Mike. As someone I'm getting into, he offers a great show on reloading. If you're looking to get into that, it's definitely a great place to start. Also, we want your feedback here at Practically Tactical. Send any compliments, feedback, guest suggestions to nick@firearmsradio.tv. Please give us a review on iTunes as well. One positive iTunes review helps us so much in the rankings. Really appreciate it. And then, as always, guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. We greatly appreciate it. And we'll catch you next week on another episode. Take care.